Hello everybody. Before starting this video, I just wanted to thank you all. The channel has hit 100 subscribers. I never thought that we would get to this number. Thank you so much. I started this channel because I wanted to have fun and learn more about iOS and all the other operating system. That's why I intend to keep doing. So thank you so much for your support. Even if you haven't subscribed to the channel, the fact that you're watching, commenting, or liking the videos helps me a lot. Thank you so much. In this video, I'm just going to be thanking you a lot. So what we're going to be doing is animating a thank you text using SwiftUI in different ways. Hope you enjoy it. We will create a new app for this, a SwiftUI app. We will eventually display everything in a tab view, but for now let's just create our first view, which is going to be color text. This view is going to display a string that's passed, and as soon as it starts animating, it will change the colors of the text as time passes. So right now our view is just a text. We're going to display it with font title just so it's bigger. And now we'll create an animatable modifier. So to conform to this protocol, what we require is first have this animatable data. One of those types can be CG float, and for that we'll use a variable percentage. So we'll set that in the getter and setter, and in the init we set the value of percentage to either 1 or 0 depending on the isAnimating value. This is what SwiftUI uses to switch between the states. With this trick, what we have achieved is now we know in what part of the animation we are in. Since we have the percentage now, we know when it starts, being it is 0, and when it ends, being 1. So now let's create a variable color, and we'll use the stages of our animation, the percentage, to change colors. We're gonna change every time we reach 20% of the stage. So from 0 to 20, we will be one color, from 20 to 40, another one, and so on. Then we just assign this color variable in the body method of this animatable modifier. To add our modifier, we just use the dot modifier. And then the animation, we will use a linear animation right now. And then we call repeats forever. So this is being executed without ending. Now, if we are not animating, we need to stop the animation. So we will call a linear animation with duration 0. And now let's create a view where we're going to be presenting this text. So this will be one of the views that we will present in the tabs of the app, which will be just animatable text. And here is where we will be modifying that animating variable. We'll add a button to change to toggle the animation states. Now let's try running the preview. Let's tap on animate, and there we have it. Our text is constantly changing colors. If we tap again, the animation stops. Let's go back and set the animation to auto reverse. So the values will switch back before animating again. And let's decrease the duration. Much better. Let's move on. Now let's work on a view that will present the text by rotating it. The effect that we want will be achieved not by an animatable modifier, but by a geometry effect. Here we will not be adding modifiers to the view, we will be creating a transform, a projection transform, which can be constructed either with CG affine transform or CA transform 3D. We will store the total degrees that we want to spin in this variable. So here we will be doing 3 spins. Then we start with the identity, and then we create a transform to rotate, which now that I remember, it cannot be in angles, it needs to be in radians. So we'll use pi times 2, and we will be spinning on the y-axis. Just like with animatable, a geometry effect is added through the modifier, and let's also play with the opacity. Let's add it to our view and see what happens. Because nothing appears, we animate it, and notice that the spinning was done on the wrong point. That's because with the projection transform, the anchor point is not in the center, it's in the edge, as you saw in 0, 0. So what we need to do is apply transformation here so that the anchor point is in the middle. We achieve this by applying a translation transform before we rotate. So we do it by half the width and half the height. We apply then the rotation transform, and then we reverse the translate that we just did. This will avoid our view from being displayed half the size, half the width and half the height. Let's test it. And there we have it. It's rotating in the center. And we could use a few more rotations and also an animation. Let's also add a scale so our view starts in a shrunk position and gets bigger. We don't want the view to start minuscule, so let's add a min, just so the minimum height is 20%. Actually, it should be max of this, and let's try it out. Now our view animates small and increases size and spins into the view. Up until now, we have been animating the sentence, the entire sentence. Let's move on to animating the words. So what this view will do is it will present each word in a random way. The view will spawn with a random offset and will slide into place. To make our testing easier, we will create the next views besides the main view. We will test it with the preview and then we'll move it to a separate folder. So here we will split the text that we are giving into words by separating by the space. We need to map it to strings because the split gives us an array of substrings. Now, as I mentioned before, what we're going to be messing with is the offset, and that we can do it through a modifier. So instead of a geometry effect, what we're going to create here is an animatable modifier. So let's use an offset. And the difference here is that in the init, what we're going to do is create a random offset. So we'll vary it between 1 minus 100 and 100, both in X and Y position. And then we apply the offset modifier. Now for this, we need to calculate the offset on each step of the animation. That's why we are capturing here the percentage as well. We apply the animated offset with the offset modifier, and then we add this to each of the words. Let's see how this looks. And there we have it. Each of the words comes from a different place and goes up. And those are the three texts that will be presented here in the animatable text. So now let's create our tab view and move on to the next one. Okay, now let's move on here and let's create an order sliding views. So instead of being random, we'll have views that the text will be sliding in an ordered fashion in different ways. For our first one, the words are not going to be sliding in from different random directions. Here we will just have the words sliding in from the bottom. For this one, we'll be basically copy pasting the random offset modifier, only that this time we won't be sending the words in random directions. Actually, now that I think about it, instead of an animatable modifier, let's use a geometry effect for this. Now we could have done it with an animatable modifier, but I still want to do it with a geometry effect, and you will see why. Let's add fraction here. And fraction, what we'll do is it will tell me if I should be animating or not the text. Since this is going to be an ordered animation, I'm going to be ordering one by one and not all at the same time. So the fraction is just going to be the index over the total amount of words. And here in the effect, I will only be animating this view when the percentage is less than the fraction. This will make sure that the first word, since the fraction is smaller, will animate faster, arriving to its position, than the other words. Let's test this. And there we have it. The words sliding one by one. Already did the sliding by word. Let's try doing it by letter. It's basically the same implementation. Unlike the one done by words, we'll not be splitting. We just map each character in our word to a string. We try animating, and there we have it. The words sliding one by one. Now, even though it's working, we may be doing the letter by letter a different way. Notice that the alpha is changing and the words are sliding one by one, but we can see that they are sliding from the bottom all at the same time. We could change this so that each letter slides in one at a time without the other one showing. We'll call this an alternate sliding order letters, and will just be a different way to achieve a similar presentation. One of the main differences with the other modifier is that we will not be using the fraction as a way to tell us in what stage we are. We're going to use the fraction just to see how much of the percentage we're going to be animating, and the order is going to be telling us if we are animating or not. So notice how this changes things. The order is the index, and the fraction we will no longer include the index. It's just going to be 1 over the amount of letters. Now here on our geometry effect, we determine if we are in range by asking if the percentage is bigger than the order by the fraction and smaller than one fraction more. If we are in that range, then that's when we animate the offset. Let's remove the opacity. Oh, we have a T. Oh yes, that's because we are not returning the identity when we are not animating. Let's actually remove these. And in our offset, it's gonna get a little bit complicated, but in this offset, we need to take into account the end of the animation, or if one of these percentages, or if the percentage is not in the range. The code is getting a little bit messy, so let's split this up into two. If the percentage is 0, we will be applying the max offset. We're not gonna be showing this. If not, if we are animating, then we just apply the offset that we just calculated. Let's try this. Much better. Notice how the difference with the middle animation. Okay, let's move on to our last animation, a scalable animation. So we will be scaling one by one the letters of a text. For our scale effect, we will be using animatable modifier this time, since we'll be using the scale modifier. And we'll use what we just created in alternate, since we'll also be using the ease in range logic, where we use the order and the fraction. So here we just return the content and we specify size. Now this size, again, we will use the is in range. If we are in range of the animation, we will send 3 times the size. If not, just 1 time. We'll use scale effect, and that's it. Let's try this out. Oh, all right. And we also need to check that we're not in the end state of the animation. Let's try it out. And there we have it. Notice the weird animation. That's because we were not using linear animation. And there we have it. Now this one turned out to be quite easy. So let's add another one where we repeat forever this cycle. So the text grows bigger from left to right and then does the same from right to left. So if we add the cycle flag, if it's turned on, we do the repeat forever animation with an auto revert. Now it looks kind of okay, but it's actually so fast that while it's animating from one side, it starts animating back. So let's make the animation longer. And there we have it. It's not the best animation. I prefer the one that doesn't cycle, but we have it. Let's do one more. We need a flashier title to highlight that we have 100 subs in the channel. So we'll do one that does the scale animation, but it's also flashier as in it changes colors. For this, I can use the 2 animatable modifiers that I already created. Nothing stops me from adding both since they change different properties. So I can add the font scale modifier, and I'll add an animation for that one, and then I'll add the color animation, and that one will have a different animation. Now let's see how our title looks in one of the views. We start animating, looking good. Let's make the color animation a little bit longer. It's a little bit harder on the eyes, so many colors changing. And then let's add the title to the other bit. Instead of using the preview, let's now see it in a simulator. Much better. I like how the color is changing and everything else looks great. Now we're done. Again, thank you so much for the support. I cannot tell you how happy I am to have achieved these 100 subs milestones. I had a lot of fun animating these views just with SwiftUI animations. Hope you liked it. Bye.